Radio is a system and a device that transmits sound, message, or in general, a signal by means of radio waves. Radio communication is the transmission of signals using modulation of electromagnetic waves at radio frequencies. Electromagnetic waves can pass through air and vacuum. Information, sound, image, message, is transmitted using certain methods and by changing some characteristics of the emitted waves such as amplitude, frequency, phase, or pulse width. Electromagnetic waves either pass directly through the environment, air, vacuum, through reflection or diffraction. The intensity of electromagnetic waves decreases with increasing distance from the emission source, and in some cases their energy is absorbed by the emission medium, such as the absorption of microwave waves by raindrops. Jamming, interference, generally changes the propagated wave. This electromagnetic interference comes from natural sources, such as lightning, or artificial sources, such as other transmitters and sudden emitters. Also, noise is produced in the receiver. Noise should not be confused with jamming. If the power of noise or interference is high enough, the intended signal can no longer be detected and detected. This issue basically limits the range of radio communication. In radio communication systems, information is transmitted in space using radio waves. At the end of transmission, the information to be sent is converted into a time-varying electrical signal called a modulation signal by a converter. The modulation signal may be an audio signal representing sound from a microphone, a video signal representing moving images from a video camera, or a digital signal consisting of a sequence of bits representing binary data from a computer. A modulation signal is applied to a radio transmitter. In the transmitter, an electronic oscillator produces an oscillating alternating current at a radio frequency called a carrier wave because it works to carry information through the air. The information signal is used to modulate the carrier, changing some aspect of the carrier wave and superimposing information on the carrier. Different radio systems use different modulation methods. AM, amplitude modulation. In an EM transmitter, the amplitude of the radio carrier wave is changed by the modulation signal. FM, frequency modulation. In an FM transmitter, the frequency of the radio carrier wave is changed by a modulating signal. In VHF, very high frequency radios, frequency modulation, FM, is used instead of amplitude modulation, AM. In the FM method, the microphone output signal changes the frequency of the radio wave instead of changing its amplitude. The FM method is used for stereo playback and achieving excellent quality, because less interference affects it than AM. FSK, frequency shift keying, used in wireless digital devices to transmit digital signals, the frequency of the carrier wave is shifted between frequencies. OAFD, orthogonal frequency division modulation, a family of complex digital modulation techniques widely used in high-bandwidth systems such as Wi-Fi networks, mobile phones, digital public broadcasting and digital audio broadcasting, DAB, to transmit digital data using a minimum radio spectrum bandwidth is used. IT includes a signal source, oscillator, which produces a carrier wave with a certain frequency, and also a process to change some characteristics of the generated carrier wave, such as amplitude, frequency, phase, or a combination of these, based on information, sound, image, etc. This process is called modulation. The transmitter transmits the modulated carrier wave to the antenna after amplification, which converts it into an electromagnetic wave that can travel through air and vacuum, sometimes with a specific polarization. The transmitter components are: microphone, converts sound into an electrical signal; oscillator, generates the carrier wave; modulator, modulates the carrier wave with the microphone output signal, e.g. changes its amplitude based on the microphone signal; amplifier, amplifies the power of the modulated carrier wave before entering the antenna; transmitting antenna, converts and spreads the modulated carrier wave into electromagnetic waves. Edited electromagnetic waves are received by the receiving antenna. The receiving antenna captures the waves and converts them into an electrical signal. The receiver reveals this signal and extracts its information, sound, image, etc. The components of the receiver are: receiver antenna, receives radio waves. These waves produce weak electrical signals in the antenna. Tuner selects the signal of a radio station and removes other signals, then reduces the frequency of the received signal by a frequency mixer. Detector extracts the audio signal from the modulated carrier wave. Amplifier amplifies the audio signal for the speaker. Loudspeaker converts the electrical signal into sound vibrations similar to what was received by the microphone. One of the first uses of radio was to send messages to naval fleets in the form of telegraph using Morse code between ships and land, and the first users included Marines and naval vessels of Japan and Russia during the Tsushima War in 1905. One of the most memorable uses of marine telegraphs is during the sinking of the Titanic in 1912, which involved communication between the operator on board the sinking ship and nearby ships, and communication with the shore to report survivors. Considering the special features that radio has, such as portability, cheapness and economy, penetration coefficient and user-friendliness, for crisis resilience or in training and information in war and terrorist incidents to natural crises such as floods and earthquake is still an unbeatable option, so it can be said with confidence that radio is a resilient medium. Radio was used to transmit orders and communicate between the Army and Navy in World War I. The Germans used radio communication for political messages when undersea cables were cut by the British. The United States broadcast President Woodrow Wilson's 14 Principles over the radio during the war. Radio programs were started in 1909 by San Jose, California and became popular in 1920. Aided by widespread recognition by radio receivers, especially in Europe and the United States, live broadcasts, including telephone messages and broadcast announcements, became widespread in the 1920s and 1930s alongside the radio program. Other uses of radio in the years before the war were the development of aircraft and ship identification devices with the help of radar. Today, radio has different modes, includes wireless, and mobile networks, just like radio programs. Before the advent of television, radio programs did not only include news and songs, but also included drama, comedy, various plays, and many other entertainments. In addition to broadcasting, radio waves are used in other types of communication devices. Police and fire engines, telephone taxis, and ambulances use two-way radio waves to communicate with the center or with each other. Mobile phones are connected to the main telephone network using radio waves. In television, radio waves are used to transmit image and sound. Spaceships are also controlled with the help of these waves. Toy cars, boats, and airplanes can also be controlled by radio waves.